They tryna turn Trenton into Baby Flint. Been signs by depression on the billboards ever since. 100 years ago we was lynched. Now they use germ warfare to kill us. I'm convinced, got the evidence. I look around and it's evident. Then go down to City Hall and see so much negligence. Real art is intelligent. A true artist sends messages that speak to your intelligence. They fought and died so I can do my thing. Not to get drunk and high or join no game. I will not let none of you die in vain. For my people I bang, bang, bang. My ancestors been through so much pain. I don't let them die in vain. My ancestors been through so much pain. I don't let them die in vain. I rep for you in everything I do. I rep for you in every place I go. I rep for you in everything I do. In every place I go. They say post-traumatic slavery disorder's fake, but I just tell them all to wake up. Everything we went through, what a way down a rape, bro. It's in our genetic makeup. So I am my ancestors from block to block. Let's build like it's Tetris. We must unite, link up like a necklace. They fought and died and we disrespected. So I come to correct it. The legacy they left I protected. We only think about self and neglected. You're African but yet you rejected. No. My ancestors been through so much pain. I don't let them die in vain. My ancestors been through so much pain. I don't let them die in vain. I rep for you in everything I do. I rep for you in every place I go. I rep for you in everything I do. In every place I go. I do. I go.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to another edition of New Freedom Exchange, your cultural expression for social dignity and community development empowerment. I'm your host, Brother Deen, here with my co-host, Sister Marsha, and we'll be joined shortly by our dear brother Imam Bilal, and we have a beautiful guest today, our dear brother Kachebee, and we're going to hear more about what he's working on and some of his experience in culture, in music, in community development, and so forth and so on. So as we always normally begin, we do our check-in. How you feeling, Marsha? I can't hear you. Nope, I can't hear you. Nope. No worries, no worries. I see you moving around, but no hair. No worries. It's just me right now. Well, hopefully they get their sound back together, and we'll bring on our guests. As you all know, for those who are new to us, New Freedom Exchange is the cultural development arm of New Freedom Works, which is our nonprofit that focuses on three primary things, which is ethical education, economic inclusion, and cultural heritage preservation. And we look forward to working with other nonprofits, other community development organizations, other business people, artists, educators, to be that connectivity, to be that connection between the urban centers, those centers that have been deprived or underserved, with these resources so they can be more better and more able to participate in this experience, not just in America, but throughout the world. So I'm going to check back with my co-host and see how she's feeling. Oh, nope. So no worries. We'll get back to them soon. Also, as you all have been, for those of you, again, who know and those who don't know, we'd like to introduce what we call the Bilal Trust. The Bilal Trust is the heritage preservation arm of New Freedom Works, and you can make your donations there. We're also sending out our first publication that we have preserved and want to reintroduce. We call it the Human, I think it's the Social Dignity series, where we reviewed the CRADE, which is the Committee to Remove All Images that Attempt to Portray the Divine. And we went over that whole workshop, those letters, those experiences that were led by Imam Muhammad and those who follow him and those who had committees as a remedy for some of the social inequality, the racial injustice, and so forth and so on. So it's a somewhat lengthy document, but it covers the whole process, the problems, the solution, and everything attached to it. So when you make your donation here, we send you that publication. Let's check again 3 times. How you feeling?
Assalamu alaikum, Sister Marsha. Bloopers.
Bloopers. It's about to be the blooper show.
Listen, we gotta start off like that. That's sort of our intro these days. Like,
right?
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me?
Oh man.
Well, no, how you feeling?
Feeling good. Today was pretty relaxed. Love those kinds of days. Alhamdulillah for everything. Not too much to do, not too much on the agenda. Excited for our guest today, Brother Kachebee. I was listening to some of his instrumental music earlier today. My kids were in here dancing, dancing to it. My daughter was like, "Mom, I heard like a Michael Jackson vibe." I was like, "Okay."
Yeah. He got that look too.
So I look forward to meeting the brother today and talking to more about what he does. How's everything for you?
Excellent. Everything's good as well. Again, it's funny. It is Labor Day, but we didn't do too much labor.
Right.
But it is, I guess, a recognition of the right to work as a human right for all people,
right,
to earn a living and to be productive. And so they commemorated this day as that day. So it was again relaxed. Me and the boys went out for a couple runs, but yeah, everything's good. Everything is good. Yeah.
Cool.
So we'll give our greetings. We have another illustrious entertainer and cultural connoisseur in our community, Imam and Brother Wali Ali. He gives us the greetings. Assalamu alaikum to you.
Yes, assalamu alaikum.
Also, one of our dear fans and supporters, also a sister of our beloved co-host, Khadija, gives us the salams.
Alaikum, Khadija.
Excellent. So we're trying to give it a few more minutes before our other co-hosts come on. So I'm going to play just a sample of one of his tracks of our guest today, and then we'll go into his bio.
Okay.
And we'll bring him on. This one is called, I believe, Nadia.
So that's what we listened to earlier.
Yeah. So let's just check it out.
Okay.
Yeah. How's Nadia doing? Nadia? Are you drinking the bath water?
my child, say my
Excellent, excellent, beautiful sound, beautiful sound. So we look forward to meeting him and greeting him. Did you have the bio?
I do. Hold on, give me one second. I was just trying to make it a little larger because I'm not that young anymore.
Oh yeah, no worries. No. Oh, we also got our dear sister who was with us yesterday, Sister Fatima, who blessed us yesterday, giving us the greetings. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, sis. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. But without further ado, we're gonna bring on our guest, and we'll start with his bio. As a singer, songwriter, and musician, Kachebee proves to be an invaluable talent. He is a fine diamond, tempered from the jazz and R&B tradition. Kachebee's music is only a byproduct of intense self-critical analysis. His tireless effort of arresting raw musical concepts and refining them to its natural beauty exemplifies the philosophical and perfectionist side of his nature. Okay, another perfectionist, because that is surely me. Kachebee previously worked as an artist and co-producer for Island Polygram Records. Before the Island Polygram deal, he defeated R. Kelly on a national televised talent contest show called The Big Break, which was hosted by Natalie Cole, the daughter of the great jazz singer, musician, and composer Nat King Cole. He also choreographed Debbie Allen's Soul Train appearance and made a cameo appearance in James Ingram's I Wanna Come Back music video. Okay, for the dancer. Later, Kachebee served as an instructor at Soundmaster Recording Engineer School and at Los Angeles City College Electronic Music Department. He plays the flute, saxophone, synthesizer, piano, and of course, you got to catch his vocals. And his genres are jazz, R&B, and hip hop. So without further ado, we'd like to bring on our guest for this evening, Brother Kachebee.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Welcome to New Freedom Exchange.
Beloved's coming from his studio, like we're coming from our studio, man. He got a whole setup right there, man.
He all professional over there and stuff.
This is so important. You know, I have to put on my suit.
Yes. He got dressed up for us.
Yes. Look like he about to perform live, man. Live on the Exchange, man. Look at exclusive.
Alhamdulillah. I really appreciate you inviting me. I'm so excited. I can really see the potential of this.
Yeah.
This, inshallah, will grow and grow and grow. You know, and all of the artists across the board would have a platform finally that will be reflective of our values. You know, so
indeed. So let's get right into it, Brother Kachebee.
Yes.
You know, we read your amazing bio, but for our viewership and our audience who are not familiar with your art, can you or who you are, can you give it to us?
Okay. Well, the short version, professionally, my brothers and I, we started, I think the year was 1990. I was a senior in high school, I believe, at that time, and or I just graduated. We didn't know anything about the music business, but we knew we loved music. Mm-hmm. So this was in San Diego at the time. My brothers and I, we used our own monies, booked a recording studio, laid down our first record. In those days, it was a 45, and that song was called City Life. City Life. I still remember it. And we took it to the radio station in San Diego, and to our surprise, it went number 2.
Nice.
And I remember, I was a senior at the time. I was getting ready to graduate. I'm coming out of the school, and all of the kids in the parking lot in their cars were just looking at us, and they were playing their music. Our music was playing on the radio station in their cars, and they were just all quiet.
Right. Like, oh my gosh, we got stars with us.
Yeah, it was so interesting. It was kind of weird, but it was like very powerful and beautiful at the same time. That's how it began. And then my family, we relocated from San Diego to Los Angeles to pursue our music career seriously, very seriously. Didn't know anything about the business, so we reached out to a music attorney to help us, to shop, to get a deal. And the attorney at the time was so humble, but turned out to be one of the most powerful attorneys in the industry.
Wow.
He didn't tell us who he was. Very humble African-American, brilliant mind. And then later on, we found out he was the former president of Motown.
Wow.
This is attorney Lee Young Jr. And that's how we landed the Island Polygram deal. So I believe he saw our entrepreneur spirit. Allah know best on why he took a liking to us. And he just, for whatever reason, really pushed and guided us along. Regrettably, he passed away a couple of years ago, but I stayed close with attorney Lee Young. And one of the last conversations I had with him, I said, one of my dreams, I want to create a company like Motown. I want to recreate Motown. And he just bust out laughing. He turned to me and he said, I got the blueprints. So he taught me a lot. And I'm forever grateful for those sessions. And it actually went here. I've written multiple business plans based on those meetings. This was years ago. And inshallah, that will kind of lead later. We can talk later about what New Africa Records and Entertainment will be. But it's based, I would say, 90% off of those experiences with attorney Lee Young.
Nice. So where did the love of music start for you? Because I'm sure it was before that moment of you and your brothers coming together.
Right. We have to thank Umi for that.
Okay.
My mom.
Thank you, Umi.
Mom is so progressive. She's very humble, but she has 2 master's degrees. She's very, anyway. Mom told me, because I didn't know, because I was literally still in the womb. Mom told me she used to listen to John Coltrane, my favorite things in particular, and would put the headphones on her belly so I could listen. So, and it just so happens Coltrane is my favorite artist of all time. For technical reasons, I happened to, when I was in college, I was a music major, and I learned later, we had to study everyone, Bach, Brahms, everyone, Charlie Parker. But there were certain technical reasons. Coltrane is not just in jazz. He is considered the greatest musician that ever lived.
Exactly.
And there's the short version of this. And my opinion, I would say number 2 is Charlie Parker. But without Parker, there is no Coltrane.
Absolutely.
Let me explain why. The solfege, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, hadn't changed in 1,000 years. All the great artists, Mozart, Brahms, Bach, my favorite, they all borrowed from that system. Charlie Parker changed the system in 1945. He literally changed the solfege system and created the bebop system. From that scale system comes bebop music.
Wow.
Without Charlie Parker's and Dizzy Gillespie's contribution to the harmonic scale system, there is no bebop music. Without bebop, there is no Coltrane. You see? And then 7 years later, Coltrane changed it even further It's called either you hear the album Giant Steps. Harmonically, that's the giant step changes. You know, there are certain chord progressions you have to follow if you want to play within the Coltrane changes or the Coltrane matrix, as some call it, you know, or the giant step changes. That went even beyond Charlie Parker, and we haven't progressed since. But anyway, that's how it all began. It began with Mom putting those headphones to her belly, and then obviously just having a love for our culture, from hip hop to jazz to R&B, you know, from Earth, Wind and Fire to Stevie Wonder. Whoa, Stevie. Joke. They force you to love them. They're so beautiful, you know, because I like how Chick Corea would say they return to forever, and they come back from the garden, and how can you not love the fruits that they bring back from the garden, you know? So that's why we love Michael Jackson in his prime, Stevie Wonder in his prime. They all, what they all had in common, they all returned to forever and then came back with those fruits. Alhamdulillah.
So what is that? As you describing it, I'm visualizing it, but it has to be something invisible as well, right? It's that pulls them to be able to make that connection.
Okay, I can, if you don't mind, I can approach it two ways, because we're scheduled to speak about the state of the African American culture as it relates to music. So to answer that question, what it is, how they're bringing that fruit back, I'm gonna hit it two different ways simultaneously, if you can bear with me. I first want to start with the state of the current culture, the hip hop culture, which is extremely powerful. Some social scientists would say it is the most powerful culture on the planet today. It is everywhere in Asia, China, Japan, Thailand, Africa, Europe. And I'm not just speaking about music. We're talking clothing, the way we speak, the way we walk, you know, the way we think, the way we dance, has all been influenced by the hip hop culture. I remember Imam Wafdi Muhammad, may Allah be pleased with him, said that the green lighters within the industry know how powerful the culture is, so they influence and finance the negative things and push the negative things through hip hop to hurt our progression, to hurt our growth. And right now, since it's worldwide, it's hurting everything. You know, that's the negative part that can come from hip hop. Now I want to go even further back. As powerful as hip hop is, there was a culture that came from us African Americans that was even more advanced. So advanced that it actually produced the greatest musicians that ever lived. And of course, we're now talking about jazz. So, and again, not just about music. We're talking about, and when I say, hey, man, that all comes from jazz. Right. The way we walk, how President Obama walked with the bob. That's all jazz, you know, being cool. Even they call Miles Davis the cool one, the birth of the cool. All of that comes from our jazz culture, our food, our clothing, the way we talk. Now I'm heading back. I'm going to explain about the garden. Recently, I was speaking with my mentor, Nolan Shahid, and I'll speak a little about him. Nolan is on such a high level. He worked with Stevie Wonder and former Earth, Wind and Fire music director, etc. Nolan explained, because I asked him, what is the state of the African American culture? Nolan explained, of course, jazz is the pinnacle and jazz is dead. That bothered me. That bothered me. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. And he said, look, you can turn on the TV, you can see musicians playing jazz right now. He said, I don't mean that. That part, of course, is active. What he meant, you go back to the founding masters, Louis Armstrong, so significant, he created swing.
Swing, yes,
swing,
absolutely.
There is no hip hop. These are masterminds now. 7 years later, comes Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Parker. There was a progression. 7 years later comes Miles Davis. That's the progression. 7 years later comes Coltrane. 7 years after that, nothing. 7 years after that, nothing. Something's wrong. That progression is what he's talking about died. Okay, so I asked him what killed it. Integration. And it just didn't affect music. It killed everything that we were trying to do progressive-wise. Black Wall Street, Black Renaissance in Harlem, all of the thinking, because you have to understand, pre-integration, the African-American mind, maybe because of segregation, maybe because we were being so oppressed, so beat down, who were we turning to? We were turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the garden. We were returning to the garden for support, for help, for inspiration, especially as it relates to creativity. Guess what happened? Allah answered our prayers, and we became the most creative people on the planet. But in order to integrate, we literally, a lot of us, not everyone, but a lot of us, the majority of us, came down in order to interface with those who were oppressing us.
Right.
Even in the arts. So when we came down to a leveled playing field, instead of not worrying about just being in the heavens of the mind, we came down to so people. I'll give you a practical example. Unless you have a question, I can stop here.
No, keep it going. Keep it
keep it going, Kachebee. Keep it
Okay.
going, man. I do have a question, but I want you to keep going with your analysis.
I'll give you an example. The great Wynton Marsalis, probably the best trumpet player on the planet today. He says there, I think, was only 7 or 8 jazz musicians. We're just students of the real jazz musicians are the ones who create the language of jazz. So we're just playing, we're just musicians. The media turned to this man and they called him the king. The king of swing. They weren't speaking about Louis Armstrong, and they weren't speaking about Duke Ellington. They were talking. They gave that title to Benny Goodman. Okay. Now, Benny Goodman, being in New York, I'm not saying anything negative about him. He loved jazz. He loved what we were doing as a people. So he turned. This is according to Nolan Shahid. This is what Nolan told me recently. He turned to the best musicians he can find. They were all African Americans. So when the record labels wanted to put money behind him, he was like, great, I'm ready to go. They looked at his band like, whoa, wait a minute. No, we want you.
Right.
Okay, if you want me to play jazz, I need to play with the best musicians. He said, we're not going to put money behind you. You have to have an all-white band. He's like, fine. So he replaces and get the all-white band. This is pre-integration. Okay. Guess who comes in this era next? About 2-3 years next, Charlie Parker arrives in Dizzy Gillespie. He could not play that. Next, Miles Davis. By the time Coltrane comes, he gets rid of his horn. But yet they call him the king of swing.
Right.
So when our people, I want to put this politically, when we dumb down, down, so we can be able to eat in the same restaurant, so we can all be one nation. When we came down, we were further disrespected. And then that's when you see the appropriation. You see people like, oh, we created jazz, not these African Americans. We created this.
Right.
We created this. And the terrible price that we paid is when we came down, because we are the ones, African Americans are the ones who killed jazz. Because in coming down, the creativity is still up in the heavens of the mind. Okay, so to answer your question, Brother Dean, that's where the fruits are. The heavens of the mind.
Now, Kachebee, you talk about integration and how that dumbed down. It killed off our creativities.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Do you? I want to be. I just want to go into this topic just a little bit. Do you think that integration was wrong for us as a people to do that, to go forth in that? You know what I'm saying? From your perspective.
Well, I think what they say, hindsight is 20/20.
Yes.
Right.
You know, from at that time, I believe I think everything had to unfold the way it unfolded because we were struggling during Jim Crow. This was like Jim Crow was still happening.
Mhm.
You know, we had at that time the Honorable Elijah Muhammad trying to lift the esteem of African American men and women. That time was extremely oppressive, and our people were in a very weak position, not being able to protect ourselves even from physical death, from physical harm. So I can't really blame what the NAACP and others who were thinking as far as integrating. I think Dr. Martin Luther King was trying to do the safest path that he can find, because maybe he thought if we picked up arms, we would immediately be destroyed. Maybe he was thinking that way. I'm not sure. And of course, we already know how the great sage, I'll call him a sage, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, was thinking that we had to, isolate ourselves. And this is what Brother Malcolm X was teaching too. Malcolm was just raw. You don't like me, I don't like you either. I don't like your mama. That's Malcolm. So, but to isolate ourselves, to protect ourselves. So that's a hard question to answer. Without both the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, let me say this. I don't think it was wrong, because without the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and without Dr. Martin Luther King, I don't believe it would have given rise to the great mind of Imam Wharf-Deen Muhammad. Because Imam Wharf-Deen Muhammad, to me, is the center. He's not, okay, we're building a nation, no one is a part of this, and he's not, for pure, just straight integration, which means giving up our dignity. So what I'm talking about, now this brings us to the spirit and philosophy that's pushing New Africa Records, our intentions. What we want to do is create an army of musicians, to create a critical mass of talent, because that's one of my conversations with Nolan Shahid. If jazz is dead, we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, he's the one that brings the life out of the death.
Absolutely.
Okay, so how do we do that, Nolan? I asked him that. He said, JB, we just go back up. We just go back up. And this time, inshallah, that you first have to create that critical mass, that you get all of these thinkers, because Charlie Parker just didn't become Charlie Parker overnight. I think the song he was working on was Cherokee. He was playing it over and over, different keys, different scale systems. The same thing with John Coltrane, practicing over and over and over, practicing with other musicians who would practice over all these different, we call them etudes. It's almost like katas in karate or forms in kung fu. There are thousands of them. There are thousands of forms in jazz, of patterns, thousands of patterns. And Train kept going over these thousands of patterns, until something happened. Something happened. His brain changed. And he was being sharpened by Miles Davis and sharpened by others. So I'm saying the same thing. We have to come together, create a critical mass of intelligence. And if Allah is merciful, maybe Allah will restart that engine again. Like Allah says, I think it's Surah Baqarah, Allah lets the light happen, they move. And then Allah takes the light, they stand still. We've been still since 1956 now, since Coltrane. So inshallah, Allah will bless us as a people. But this time around, we've been driven by the thinking of Imam Wafdi Muhammad, which means that once we generate that creativity again, we don't want to interface with other ethnicities in a way where we sacrifice our creativity and we sacrifice our dignity. Because it leads to appropriation and it leads to death of creativity. What we want to do is this time around is control it and demand that respect. If you can't play with us, you're not supposed to be playing with us. Go ahead and sit down, get some popcorn, and we'll show you how to do it. Alhamdulillah. Because what we're tapping into is something that Allah is allowing us to tap into. And if Allah is merciful, maybe Allah will show favor on us again, and we'll continue to create something that is, we won't recognize it now. Is the reason why even hip hop, if you notice, all of the music sounds the same. Yep. But it's not just hip hop, jazz the same. Jazz 1950s sound the same in the 60s, sound the same in the 70s, sound the same in the 80s, sound the same today, because that creativity, that engine of creativity, died.
So do you?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Bilal.
No, go ahead, Marsha. Go ahead.
No, I just was gonna say. So what is the importance for reviving jazz? Like, why is it so important for jazz to be rebirthed in our society? Because jazz is the highest form of our connection to forever. Let me explain that. Like, okay, it's so interesting. And I'm not just thinking when I say jazz, maybe it'd be better to say improvisational music. Okay. Because when you think of jazz, you're thinking of the 50s, 60s, thinking of fusion. That's already art. Mm-hmm. Okay. Art is like you go into the garden and you see some beautiful flowers and you pick them and put them in a vase and put them and you have them in your home next to your paintings, and you're like, oh, look at these beautiful flowers. But the flowers is dead now, it's dated. When I don't see Coltrane as an artist. Okay. Coltrane roots was still active. He was still green and live. When you watched him, he was rooted. So when I hear like great masters today, and they're so technical and efficient, I can literally see their soul. And what I mean, I don't mean that in a spooky way. I mean, I can see their intentions. I can see their note preferences. That tells me a lot about their personality. But when I listen to Coltrane, I see my own soul. Okay. It's because I believe he was connected to that oneness. And anyone who connects to that oneness, they'll see themselves too. If that makes more sense. Now, after that, the importance of it's not just jazz in the future; it's connecting back to that oneness. Right. So that creative that creative engine can turn back on. When it turns back on, just think about this. Louis Armstrong. Think about how jazz sounded then. 7 years later, Charlie Parker. Bebop was radically different from what Louis. That's two different sounds. 7 years later, you have Miles Davis, Cool. The Cool sound was radically different from bebop. It was like life after death. 7 years later, you listen to A Love Supreme. That don't sound anything. Or Giant Steps is so radical. In fact, the critics at the time were saying that Coltrane broke jazz. But my point is, every time that progression happens, it's not going to be like what happened before. Right. So that's why we need it. Now, I was listening, and I love the broadcast from yesterday. Brother Dean was talking about the pie.
We're gonna get to that one. Brother, to the CIA confessions.
Right. Yeah. Look, yeah, man. Sure, they bring that pie, and I'm turning my own mom in.
I was like, your mom. Yeah.
But you have to understand the lion's share of the, I would say, just the whole foundation of the entertainment industry was born off the backs and the genius of African American minds.
Absolutely.
So today we're looking at 20 billion. So we're talking about the share, the pie. 20 billion worldwide, 11 billion US. Now, if we talk about hip hop, which is the number one genre in the world,
Right.
the last I checked, the United States is not even the number one consumer. Do you know which country it is?
China.
Japan.
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 I
Okay.
know it's
Okay.
like, yeah.
Japan.
Yeah. So that's another reason why it's important for us to connect back to that oneness, Sister Marsha.
Yes.
I would say improvisation, because what we are calling jazz, once we tap back in, when that creative wheel spins again, it may be something totally radically different.
Right.
That we can even relate to now.
Right.
My daughters are very hardcore. You know, I've been writing an album. It's called the Karma album. It's been five years now. And at the very beginning, my oldest daughter, she's 24 now.
Mm-hmm.
She says, "Daddy, ain't nobody feeling jazz. You need to write some hip hop, right?" Now, my younger girl, Jenna, she didn't say anything. She dare not contradict her big sister. So Nadia, she leaves the room. Jenna comes. She's like, "Daddy, Jenna crazy." She said, "Nadia is crazy. Don't listen to Nadia." She said, This is Jenna. Jenna is 11 now. She said hip hop. She said hip hop is dead. You need to do future-based music.
Oh.
Whoa. Okay. Anyway, but that's that creative. Just to recap this portion of it, the intention of New Africa Records and Entertainment is to get all of the creative minds in the country and to sharpen each other like scientists, like how Miles sharpened Train, how Train sharpened Monk. You know, we all sharpen each other to the point that I believe that we can create something new. Hopefully Allah will bless us and we'll start that engine again. At a minimum, even if we fail to create something, an engine, at least we would be the best artists on the planet. Being able to reproduce and play with the stardust that Coltrane left behind. He was truly a supernova of musical ideas. So even if we can't become a star on our own, at least we can play with the stardust that Coltrane sonically left with us. And then let that spread throughout all genres, R&B, hip hop, funk, it don't matter. Country, rock, it doesn't matter. You know, but this time around, we won't cede control. We won't give up our dignity, inshallah. It don't mean that we want to shut off. No, in fact, we want a seat at the table. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as you all know better than me, Allah made us in different tribes and different ethnicities so we can learn from each other, love each other. We want our seat at the table with dignity as well.
Absolutely.
Can you talk about, before we divert and go back into that deep dive into the economics of ownership? Talk about how Al-Islam influenced you and your music into jazz and etc. Because as we know, you mentioned some of these great names like Dizzy and Miles Davis and Thelonious Monk and of course John Coltrane, etc. Charlie Parker. They were all influenced by Al-Islam. You know what I'm saying? All of them. You understand what I'm saying? And a lot of them did revert to Al-Islam, actually, as quiet as kept. And they changed their names to actually Muslim names. But they couldn't, you know, so they had various stages of development that was going on during that time. And you mentioned there was progression. So obviously Al-Islam actually influenced them because Al-Islam is a stage of progression. You understand what I'm saying? So that's why they were sharpening each other. You understand what I'm saying? As you said, they had touched with that oneness. So can you elaborate a little bit on how Al-Islam influenced you? You know what I'm saying? And the art that you do.
Wow, that's a very deep question because Al-Islam is so deep. You know, Al-Islam is deeper than and this is just from my experience, what many Muslims really realize, is older than our beloved Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Al-Islam is old. And anyway, I don't really know where to begin with that. I think I love how Imam Wafdi Muhammad put it. Al-Islam is sincerity. And this is what my mom, how she used to train us. And I know I'm dating myself now, but I remember when everything switched over. We were kids. I was in the junior fruit, 1974, bald-headed, Temple 28, St. Louis. And I remember us training in the the Ozarks, Shotokan and weapons. It was out. We were out there. We were training with some commandos. And then 1975 rolled around. Imam Muhammad comes, and literally, it wasn't overnight. Obviously, I don't think the mind could just take it like that.
Right.
Slowly start showing us the Quran.
A progression.
Yeah, progression. And my mom was so disciplined. She told us when we were kids, if you don't read Quran, you don't eat. I'm just real. And sometimes, we would be eating, she raised us like we were FOI. So we were very highly disciplined as we ate. I remember Mama reading the Quran to us as kids. So maybe that's where it came. At least with the germ, at least the conscious germ. I personally believe we're all born Muslim, but that becoming Muslim proper, I think Mama planted that germ. And then when I became 14, I always been kind of nerdy in reading. I used to read a lot on my own, and decided to really take Al-Islam very seriously around 14. I know it's a long story, but that's a very heavy question. I think, well, I'll put it this way. The number one factor, I would say, with Al-Islam, how it's influencing me as it relates to music, is sincerity. That translates to hard work ethic. When you're talking about Charlie Parker, he used to practice 12 hours, 14 hours every day. Coltrane, same thing. When I was first training with my first music instructor, he used to tell me, if you practice a half an hour every day, it's a joke. You practice an hour every day, you'll be below average. 2 hours every day, you'll be okay. 3 hours every day, you'll be above average. 4 hours every day, people start to notice you. Anything above that, you'll reach the realm of becoming a master. So I used to practice 8 hours every day during the summer. And because I practice 8 hours, my teacher would practice 12 hours.
Wow.
And so when I was in the 4th grade, that's when we started. We started with Mozart, Rimsky-Korsakov, Flight of the Bumblebee. By the time I was in the 6th grade, I was playing Charlie Parker. I was playing Chi-Chi, and Now It's the Time. By the time I got to the 7th grade, he introduced me to Coltrane. I put my horn down for 2 years. That was just too much. I didn't understand it. That was a lot. But anyway, Al-Islam before music, because I'm Muslim before music, is sincerity. And if you're going to do anything, you have to be, if you want to be successful at it, you have to be sincere. I think that's probably the number one influence Al-Islam has on me as a Muslim and as an artist. Hopefully it's not too boring.
No. I'm like,
very insightful.
Yeah, it's very insightful. And I'm like sitting here in a trance listening to you, because I'm envisioning in my mind some of the things that you're saying, because and the one thing that kept coming to my mind, right, because you kept saying that Islam is sincerity, right? And I didn't at first, when you start saying it, I didn't really know where you were going with it, and I was just like, Dad, how do you play sincerity? Like, that has to be deep.
Right. Because I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, but that's just where my mind was going as you were saying. Yeah. So, there's nothing boring about this conversation. Trust me, it's actually really, really like it takes your mind, because even when you talked about the different genres being a culture, right? So I've heard, hip hop culture. You hear that, and it just kind of sounds cliche-ish.
Right.
Cliche-ish. But, when I hear you describe it, I'm just like, wow, like it's a culture. So then that leads me to my question of how important is music to where we are as people, right? Like what role does music play for us as people, African Americans, Muslims, young people, like all of that? Like what is the role? Because to hear you describe it, it just seems so much bigger than hearing somebody say jazz culture or hip hop culture.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful question. I love that question because remember I said art is like picking those plants and we have them in the vase. What we intend to do at New Africa is taking those plants and putting them back into the garden. We want to put them back into the garden of the mind so we can grow new fruit. And the reason why that's important, because that's part of our soul. We sacrifice a portion of our soul. That's why it was so devastating. And that's why it is devastating. The shaitan know that. That's why it used culture and music to control people. I think it was the great sage, Imam Deen Muhammad. I think the Imam Hassan said this yesterday, that whoever controls your culture controls you.
Right.
Because that is literally a part of your soul. That's a part of your soul. Now, I don't want to be all spooky. What I mean by that, when I think of soul, because I think of like a plate, like a dinner plate.
Okay.
Different vegetables on this plate, and each vegetable represents a preference. And one vegetable could be courageous. One vegetable can be integrity, and one could be being fearful or being a coward. Music helps influence and inspire people to either uplift their soul or to debase themselves.
Wow.
You remember when James Brown said, "Look, I'm black and I'm proud."
Yeah.
Where do you think that came from? That came from the NOI.
Yes.
You see what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, because even though obviously, I will just say this: there were some great things that came out of the Nation of Islam. Obviously, the shirt, that part, I'm not attaching to that.
Right.
But I'm talking about raising yourself up, having self-dignity and self-pride, and stop eating yourself.
Social dignity.
Yeah, self-identity. But then identifying with excellence.
Right.
I'm black and I'm beautiful.
Yes.
You see? So clean yourself up, brother. Clean yourself up, sister. That was really Elijah Muhammad. He said, "I'm not here to teach you religion." Elijah Muhammad said that.
Right.
You need to listen to Imam Deen Muhammad for that piece. And Imam Muhammad took us into the Quran. May Allah give him paradise.
Took us into the garden.
Took us into the garden. Exactly. So to answer your question, Sister Marsha, that's why I really love it. And I know this is controversial because some Muslims don't believe in music. They think it's haram or at a minimum makruh.
Right.
I believe they just probably don't realize that it's actually part of their soul. I'll give you this, and hopefully this don't offend. I don't mean this to really offend.
Come on, Kachebee, come on. Cut that out, man. Bring it out, man. You're on a roll.
Okay. I remember speaking with a brother from a different orientation. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
And he was like, he messaged me. He's like, "Brother, why are you doing music? Music is haram." And I'm like, "Are you sure about that?" And I said, "Okay, let me ask you. I said, "What is music?" I said, "Take your time. If you speak Arabic, get an Arabic dictionary. It don't matter. Get an English dictionary. Get both of them. It don't matter. Music is three things. It is melody, it is rhythm, and it's harmony. That's music. And I told him, and I said, now think about what I'm saying. Just let that marinate.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you still think music is haram?
Right.
He said, no, brother, music is haram. I said, okay. Do you call the adhan?
Right.
I said, if music is haram, I want you to stop using melody and rhythm when you call the adhan. He was shocked. And when we're all making salah and we say I mean together,
right,
that's harmony. Stop the harmony that's produced.
Right. That's harmony, absolutely.
Stop the harmony of the spinning of the planets that's produced. Have you guys ever heard the sound of the different planets? Just Google that. It's really interesting. It's really, and the way Mama Earth sounds is so interesting. Every planet is vibrating at its own frequency. And when all the planets vibrate, just like our voices are vibrating at different frequencies, it creates natural harmony.
Wow.
That's part of our soul. That's part of the universe. How you gonna, anyway, but to answer
Surah, hold on. Surah,
going hard.
Surah 73, verse 4. Leave them with that. Surah 73, verse 4.
Recite it.
Tartil.
Recite it. Recite it. Come on. What is it? What does it say? What does it read?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أو زد عليه ورتل الفرقان ترتيلا, or add to it and recite the Quran with measured recitation. That's how they translate it.
There it is.
Measured recitation. But it means rhythm. It means
rhythm.
Like rhythm. It's in creation. It's in creation. It's in revelation.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think where we probably get tied up as people and, with that whole ideology, music is haram, is just because of what we then associated with on top of that, right? The lyrics and all of that stuff. But, but the baseline of it, as you explain it, that's who we are. That's what we do on a regular basis. Right. And so it's just interesting to hear you explain it, because I'm just like, dang, I never even went so deep, and I love music. Let me tell you something. It's a whole concert. It is a whole concert in this house every day. But to hear the way you explain it, and to relate it to culture, and to relate it to oneness, and to relate it to humanity is just it's just awesome, because I think we look at music in general so on the surface, that these kinds of conversations don't happen in relation to music and the role that it plays and the importance that it has in community.
We look at it on the surface because the flowers have been picked, and it's not rooted back in the soul music. That's what's missing. So we have to return back to soul music. And it's fair to say haram music is what's haram. Right. You see? So
I agree.
Inshallah, and the brothers who I would agree with them 1,000,000% on that. Haram music is what's haram. But halal, if it's halal, now to even go a step further, music is like food to me. Now, I love Chinese food. I love Thai food. Ain't nothing on earth like some halal soul food with a slice of bean pie. Okay.
Slice of that new freedom pie.
That freedom pie, because that's from us.
Right.
That's what Allah gave us. I love other ethnicities. I love what they get from the universe. When they go into the garden, what they bring back is interesting. And I love it. I'm like, whoa, I love Kung Fu. Blame Bruce Lee for that. When I first saw him, I was like, what? And then I see Ip Man. I'm like, whoa, come on now. But they went into the garden and they brought that back. And it's beautiful. I love it. Right. I love Mexican food. Right. I love Mexican music. You see? But I'm going to hate myself now? Right. I don't like my own food. I don't like the way I think. I don't like our scholars that come, I don't like our music. Come on, man. I like Arabic music. I hear when the brothers call the adhan, sometimes they're using not an African-American scale. They're using an Arabic scale when they call the adhan.
Wow.
You know, they're using Arabic music. You know, but anyway, I'll leave it there.
No, it's right on point, right on point. And before we segue, we'd like to thank everyone for watching so far. New Freedom Exchange here on Facebook Live. If you like what you're hearing and seeing, please share the live, like the Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel, New Freedom Exchange, as well. And we're here with our brother Kachebee Abdullah, one of the trailblazers and pioneers of our community in the field of arts, in the field of rhythm and sound. We are pleased to be here with you all. And as we transition this conversation, I do want to us to talk a little bit more about the ownership piece of music,
Right.
the ownership and production and the control. You mentioned returning back to the soul. You mentioned returning back to the soul music. You mentioned returning back to lacking us for what we are worth. In a sense, saying, how does that connect to the new what you have here presented to us as far as New Africa Productions, New Africa, the label? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, please. Thank you. Going direct to market. That's because the market is the demand. We're not listening to any of the so-called green lighters. I remember when Prince was at war with Warner Brothers.
That's right, Warner Brothers. That's right.
And they were trying to convince him that he was a spent star. So Prince was like, "Look, not only do I don't need you, Warner Brothers, I don't even need radio." And he said, "I'll prove it to you." Now, this is what Prince did. He went to the UK and got like one of their top newspapers, you know, like I guess the New York Times or whatever, the top newspaper in the UK. And he says, "You want to buy 2 million copies of my music. And in return, I'm going to be on the front cover, fledged interview of your paper. And you're going to give the music away for free." They sold the newspaper, gave Prince music. They bought Prince music. Prince, the result, Prince went double platinum without radio.
Wow.
And without his record label.
Genius.
Because he went direct to market. So we already know, like I mentioned earlier, 11 billion US, 20 billion worldwide. We know that we are the creative genius. Hip hop is the #1 genre in the world. What we plan on doing is first, and in fact, I've already done it. I wrote, let me show you this, if you can see this. This is a business plan I wrote in 2004. So what I'm doing as we speak, I'm updating a business plan for New Africa Records and Entertainment. In early 2021, I want to, and maybe I can launch it on this program. I want to introduce it to the community.
We would love that.
New Africa Records and Entertainment is technically now a C corporation, but when it's time, I want to open it up to the community so they can buy in shares. I love the model
shares, nice.
That Imam Muhammad had with CPC, the Collective Purchase Conference. The format was Limited Liability Corporation. Everyone had a chance to buy in and grow together. The Imam was Imam Muhammad was so advanced. A lot of people just don't really realize it. He was so ahead of his time. Amazon wasn't in place yet.
Before Amazon.
This is before Jeff Bezos, man.
Yeah. So can you imagine if he would have launched CPC with Amazon here? We come back from Syria, come back from China, and we distribute through Amazon or distribute through eBay and others. You know, but maybe it just wasn't time. But I believe our time has come now. You know, we can't do everything. There are some Muslims working in the financial field. Some are working in real estate. You know, my focus is on entertainment and music. So what we want to do is open it up. Now, I have some very good news. We have already appointed our first president and CEO of New Africa Records. And that is the brother I was mentioning earlier, Brother Nolan Shaheed. And
Shaheed, okay.
Yeah, and he again worked with Stevie Wonder. He was Anita Baker's music director, Earth, Wind and Fire's music director. Who am I missing? Diana Ross, music director. You know, he's a monster. Work with Count Basie. You know, and Nolan, not only is he a music master, I'm not exaggerating, you can Google him, Nolan Shahid. He's also a master athlete. He actually have world records. He's holding world records right now in track and field. He's a true Renaissance man. So if we're literally trying to create a new Renaissance, we need a Renaissance man after him. Right. So after some serious conversations with Nolan on the state of our culture and how we are going to turn that engine back on and return to forever, if you will, he told me we got to go back up. And when he explained that, I'm like, Nolan, you have to be the president. You know. So anyway, that's in short, New Africa. What we want to do is open up the shares, build enough finance. We'll turn to our community first. We want to give everyone in our community, Muslims that follow Imam Wafdi Muhammad, and then Muslims outside of that, first right of refusal. Give them, and we want everything to be transparent. You know, you buy the share structure. Once you buy into the company, once we have generate enough finance to do what we got to do, then what we want to do is take this on the road. The number one impediment to my initial thinking and planning is COVID. But hopefully, inshallah, if COVID subsides and that goes away, we'll of course be preparing in the background. But man, if that goes away, then what we want to do is actually go on the road. You know, like I told Lee Young, I want to create a Motown-like company. And he said, I have the blueprints. And that's what Motown had to do in the beginning. They created the Motown Review. I'm sure Brother Ali is watching, because I believe he's done a lot of work with Motown. But Motown, they were traveling. They had to travel to build up that income, to build up the notoriety among the artists, to sharpen each other as they go. You know, Michael Jackson was a kid looking at Stevie Wonder and Smokey Robinson and the Temptations. He was absorbing all of that. They created a monster. You know, so but anyway, we want to do the same thing. Phase 2 is so big, I don't want to mention it because I don't want those who will try to blunt what we're trying to do to be planning against us 5 years from now. But I can tell you the first plan, because it's so easy and it's so, you know, it's not a secret. We plan on a worldwide tour showcasing our talent and showcasing the African American culture worldwide. Let me put it this way. I'll end this way. Exactly. Motown Review, the Muslim Motown Review. Thank you. Yes, indeed. Let me put it this way. When I had the choice to learn praying mantis kung fu, which I studied when I was in Los Angeles, I can either learn it from Mr. Lee, or I can learn it from someone else. Right. It's not Chinese. Who are you going to go to? If I want to learn Taekwondo, which my daughters are learning, do I go to Grandmaster Kwan, or do I go to, now if we're in Japan and they want to hear some authentic R&B music, hip hop music, are you going to come to New Africa? Are you going to go? You feel me? So I have so much confidence in our people because the whole industry was built on our backs anyway. So
that's right.
We're not going to reinvent the wheel. We're just going to do what we've always done. But this time around, inshallah, we're going to control it, and we're not conceding anything, especially our dignity. Never again. Motown was a sign. Barry Gordy was a Muslim. He sold Motown. You know, it was hurtful. BET is a sign that was sold. It's not
hurtful, man.
Yeah, it's very hurtful. So inshallah, we won't sell out. And our shareholders, which would be you, will force us not to sell out. If I go crazy, I love how you said it, Imam Bilal. I will be replaced. It's not about no individual. I remember Imam Muhammad, 1978, and I'm sure you're aware of this. The Imams subtitled The Bee.
Yes.
And
Yes. Yes. Me and Dean was just talking about that lecture. That's right.
yeah, yeah.
That's right.
So beautiful. The bee, everything happens for a reason. My name is Kachebee. Kachebee.
Kachebee.
And everything happens for a reason. The Imam says when the male bee impregnates the queen, he immediately becomes fertilizer. And he said that may sound harsh, but it's not about that individual. First off, the queen is bigger than the males.
Yes.
So she only rolling with the strongest, the wisest one who can deal with her. She ain't rolling with no weak male. So why? Because when she do mate, then he is repeated over and over in her babies. That's where he will find himself. He will find himself in the babies. That's why I believe Imam Muhammad's analysis will probably last for about 300 years. I remember an article in the New York Times, they called Imam Muhammad the Martin Luther of Al-Islam. And I'm not talking about Dr. King. I'm talking about
Martin Luther, Reformation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's no joke. His thinking is probably going to be, because of his analysis, maybe 500 years. Anyway, I don't know how we got deep into it. I remember. If I go crazy, I will be replaced. If Nolan go crazy, he will be replaced. New Africa is about community. It's about creating, bringing together and creating critical mass. I believe that is the formula for reinvigorating the Renaissance, reinvigorating New Africa, reinvigorating the New Africa community life. And then, inshallah, maybe even one day, even within that, it will escalate to Bilalian life. That's a high level, inshallah. At that point, we're building cities.
That's right.
We're building cities, and not just for African American. We're building cities for everyone.
That's right.
So and we ain't playing with this. I'm not going to back up, and the people I'm surrounding, we're not going to back up. We're moving forward. We soldiers. I'm doing
nice. So we talked about.
I got serious. I'm sorry. Go
ahead. Yeah, no, the whole mood changed. Right?
You said the paramantis, so you about to go in.
But we talked about music, and we talked about that whole concept of music being haram. We talked about different genres of music. We even talked early on. You talked about hip hop and just that being all over the world and having this great influence. And so my question to you is, what is a musician's responsibility, if they have one at all, to I guess the social justice climate that we're in, to our position as human beings? What's the musician's responsibility, or do they even have one?
Right. Some would argue, and they're coming from the Western tradition, that their responsibility is to reflect life authentically, with no filter. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. Give you an example.
Okay.
There's a tune that I play sometimes, Anytime, Any Place by Janet Jackson.
Oh, that's my song.
I love the instrumental music, but when you read her lyrics, I'm like, oh my God.
Yes, it's a little bit extra. Yeah.
I love my wife, but not anytime, any place. There's just some, anyway, very. But so I think the responsibility of the African American who happens to be Muslim, and let me put it on me. I believe my responsibility, and I'll put this twofold.
Okay.
From an Islamic point, which is the most important point, is to try to remain genuine as much as possible, to remain sincere, to keep taqwa, the God consciousness, and to do everything Bismillah, exactly how Allah want me to do it in everything that I do.
Okay.
That's the number one thing. That's like the spirit that's behind. That's when I play the piano, when I play the sax, when I write lyrics, Am I writing lyrics to try to seduce this sister? Or is that coming from that spirit? Or if I'm coming from the spirit from the Quran?
Right.
It don't necessarily have to be saying, oh, Allah, I love Allah. No, I could be singing about, I love my babies, or like Stevie Wonder, isn't she lovely? All of that is from the correct spirit.
Right.
That's part one. Now, part two, responsibility of the musician is to stop making art, to take that flower and replant it back in the garden so it can start to grow again. And so the responsibility of the musician and the artist is to reignite creativity and to never cede it, to never give that up again, because we see what happens, appropriation. It's like in the Quran, when the hell comes, oh Allah, can you please send me back to the earth? I'll be good. Why? You just going to do the same thing. So I already believe if Allah blesses us again and we come up with something so beautiful and different, if we come back down and cede that control again, it will just be appropriated again. So this time around, we will control our intellectual properties, all of the music that we create, all the videos, all the films. If it's within New Africa, we will control that and never cede it. And by the way, I don't want New Africa to be the only entertainment firm thriving in our community.
Right.
My job, I want to create as many different entertainment firms possible for security reasons. It's actually safer, Frank, and I've had those discussions with our CEO now. Frankly, the mafia. I'm not going to go too deep into that. We ain't worried. We got serious security. Allah's the best protector, but we got some brothers that just want to exercise their knowledge on someone's butt. There's no other way to put it. But I do know. I do know if you try to climb that beanstalk by yourself, there's some giants up there, and they are cannibals. We have to go up as a community, like bees. So you affect one bee, the whole hive come on you, and we deal with you. We deal with you, and that requires sincerity, Sister Marsha.
Yeah, that
requires sincerity. So if we got an artist who's having a problem someplace, or just like, you know what? This is a true story, and you probably know this about Muhammad Ali. When the mafia tried to extort him and threatened to break his legs and to kill him, he turned to Elijah Muhammad and said, they threatened to kill me. And Elijah Muhammad said, well, they bleed too.
Right.
And from my understanding, the guy that threatened Ali, he almost got beat to death in the office. They dealt with him, and the other families didn't do anything because you want to do go to war with the Nation of Islam, and plus he didn't have authorization to come at Ali in the first place, not on that level. So anyway,
Imam Muhammad put it like this: the hitman could get hit too. FYI.
Thank you. Exactly, and we Muslim, So if you happen to be sincere, who are you fearing except and only Allah? So what I try to do, we don't want to become monsters.
Right.
We sometimes I think about that when I was, really heavy practicing martial arts and getting to weapons and things, and it started to bother me that I start to become insensitive, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm still a human, but as a man, this is what I say. I prefer to be a soft kitty cat around my wife and kids. But if someone breaking that front door,
it's on and popping.
Yeah.
Cats should be coming with the FY training.
As we wind it down, that last point is very crucial, because when we look at different urban centers and how they portray the art and entertainment as a expression of violence, as an expression of killing each other and going to each other homes and going to each other women and abusing children.
Right.
So what you're saying is very crucial, because if it's not there and then they're getting the most access, then we're behind the eight ball every time.
Right. New Africa, inshallah, will be one of the companies to help counter that, to provide an alternative narrative, an alternative, an example of artists who can make conscious music, whether it's rap, hip hop, whatever it is, because we can't give up that. That's us. Can't give up hip hop, and we're not giving that up to these crazy evil people. So our job is to, and this goes back to Sister Marsha's question, the responsibility. Our responsibility is to have an alternative that we can present, an alternative opportunity for artists to sign with us, so we can push them and promote them financially, so they can become wealthy. One of my dreams is to create multiple millionaires from our community, because it's actually safer. It'd be safer. How are you going to build cities if you got 1 or 2 people here and some assassin come and handle that, and that's over with right there? One brother say, oh, and he was a Muslim. He said, when is the next Malcolm X coming? I said, what about 1 million Malcolm X's?
Right.
What about 1 million Imam Deen Muhammad's? We're bringing community life. We want to bring the collective now, because our thinking is not going to always be the same, which is beautiful, because it's going to be hard for the enemy to stop it. We'll be moving in multiple directions, multiple power bases. I don't want everything in one spot. We don't need to be centralized. The Imam taught against that too. That was one of the problems of the Nation of Islam. That's why it was destroyed from the inside out. Even the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says the nation is now honeycombed with hypocrites. It was so infiltrated, FBI and police intelligence and all that, but alhamdulillah. But you can't stop 1 million Malcolm X's. You can't stop 1 million Imam Deen Muhammad's and others, 1 million Booker T. Washingtons. So inshallah, in short, we are going to create a new African Renaissance, inshallah. That's our goal. We want to create a renaissance for our people. We want to create cities. We want to surpass Dr. King and create cities for our people and for everyone, not just African Americans, but for everyone. If you take this back, and I'll end here, I want to talk everyone head talk. We love Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. After the Prophet received what he received, then he went and started building the Medina state. That's right. Where they have their own constitution. They have their own system of governance, and etc. Commerce, all of those things to provide the necessities for the people. There we go. I'm saying out there, and that's what we are in. That's what we need to be looking at. How can we provide the necessities for our people? We say it's food, clothing, shelter, transportation, but you can broaden that. Like this conversation, we're broadening just those aspects are important, but we're broadening it out to those 4 aspirations, as the Imam brought us to, those 4 aspirations of the culture, our governance, our education, and our economics. They all tie together as well. Saying create a Imam Muhammad, and I was guilty of this when I was younger, because I loved the Deen so much. I loved Al-Islam, so I was probably one step away from joining the Taliban. I was just hardcore, man. I was hardcore. I was so religious. I was just a little extreme. But the Imam say, don't forget your share of this dunya.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
I was at the point where I'm like, I don't need no dunya. I don't need none of this, man. I would meditate, levitate, you know what I mean? but that's not if we follow the Sunnah.
Right.
Muhammad had material, what's the word? Aspirations for the people. Mm-hmm. If he didn't, then why build Medina?
Right.
If you're not, like all those different aspects, Imam, you were just talking about. In short, we want to use entertainment to generate money, to do what we're talking about, to help build community life. We want to use New Africa Records to make money so we can build community life. That's what I can do. I'm one, I can't be focused on banking. I can't be focusing on importing, exporting, except as it relates to music,
Right.
real estate. It's just too much. We got others who need to do that. But I eat, sleep, dream, write music, sleep music. And I know how powerful it is. It generates a lot of money, billions of dollars. We just want our piece of that, our pie, Brother Dean, our piece of that dunya, so we can manifest our spirit. You have to marry that spirit with the material. We have to remain balanced. So we want to always keep the taqwa, the driving force in how we navigate through the dunya. You can't, we're not spirits, without physical bodies. But we do have, when I say spirit, I don't mean that spooky. I mean programming. You could look at my mind like a computer. We're following the Quran program, the programming of the Quran. That programming is what's driving me to do what I'm doing now.
Right.
When I do something crazy that's against the Quran, that's just some virus, that the Salah have to knock out. That's some weird thinking that maybe I picked up in an untamed culture someplace, and it embedded itself in my soul. But that Ramadan will purge out.
Nice.
I'll just leave it.
No, can you give that before you finish up? Can you give that one statement again about your intentions for music to build community life? Because when you said that, I thought of if everybody, whatever their interest is, make that same statement. Now we get to where we're talking about the new independent vision.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's so beautiful. It almost makes me want to cry, because when I think of cultures, Muslim cultures like Indonesia, Malaysia, Pakistan, Saudis, is some African, Eritrea, the Sudan. When I think of other cultures, Muslims who are building cities in that culture, I just can't wait when we show up to the table and they were like, man, look at our cousins in America, man.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of makes me want to cry when I think about that, because I believe that day is coming. I believe that day is coming. So, but to recap, what Allah has given me, I know the power of music. I know, like how Sister Marsha was saying, it touches you deeply. And we want to use that in a positive way. But of course, we're coming from an Islamic point, but at the same time, we have to be experts in music. We just can't be corny,
Right.
We have to really know and be skilled. We need to be the new Coltrane's, the new Michael Jacksons, the new Stevie Wonders. Stevie Wonder's, I think, almost in his 70s now. Wayne Shorter's in his 80s. These masters are not going to be long. Then if we don't start that creative engine again, then what? What's going to happen?
Right.
So what we want to do on the entertainment side is twofold. Not only generate monies to help build our community, but we want to build a moral community. And even the way we generate the money will be moral. So our music has to be halal. Our dance has to be halal. Our speech has to be halal. Our dress has to be halal. Everything has to be halal. And that's dawah for those who are not even Muslim. They be like, whoa, man, I like their sound. They can come to your concert and have to worry about smelling narcotics or worry about this and that because they know they get checked, So that's the ideal. That's what we, inshallah, will strive for. And to never give it away. So when I die and Nolan die, the next generation keeps it going, and they take the reins, and maybe they split and create more companies, and yet never leave the guidance of the Quran. That's number one. That's always the most important. What Allah wants. But community life is man. You have to maybe do another session on what will happen if we don't do this. If African Americans don't build communities to protect ourselves and build our own cities, we're dealing with a beast here in the United States who is very sick. They've been sick for a long time. And I'll end here on this subject. When I think about the effects of slavery and how it affected African Americans, even in our DNA. Psychologically, we behave certain ways because our DNA is triggered that way. But imagine that you are holding someone down for 400 years. how's that affecting your DNA and your children's DNA? I heard one social scientist say the number one mental illness in the United States is white supremacy and racism.
Wow.
That's the number one mental illness, and a lot of them don't even realize it. But anyway, I'll leave it there. So that we'll use music. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'll say part 2 coming soon. Keep it.
Yeah,
going.
inshallah. You know what? Inshallah, we can make part 2 when we launch it. Hopefully early 2021. I would love to launch New Africa Records on your program if you would have me.
Absolutely.
Of course. You and Nolan, inshallah.
Oh man, that'd be beautiful.
Bring the team, man. Bring the squad. We'll have some new freedom pies to go around too.
Oh man, I see what you're doing. I'll give up the whole company over a bean pie. All the executives and board of directors hating my gut. I'm signed away the company over a slice of bean pie.
So we want to thank our brother Kachebee Abdullah for coming and blessing us with his insights, his presence, and his artistry, and what he's working on with the New Africa Records. As you all see, this is definitely something that is critical. It's crucial to our community concerns as a people, as an African American people. This is not just for the Muslims. This is for all, for the upliftment of social dignity and community empowerment through the development for all of mankind. And that's what the Muslim is about. That's what we're about. We're about bringing that to the people, to the consciousness of the people, and raising the consciousness of the people. And our brother can be found on Instagram, right down there. He's also can be found on Facebook as well. It's Kachebee Abdullah. On YouTube as well. You can YouTube him underneath the same name, and his music will come up as well. So my closing remarks, and I'll keep them very brief because I know we're way over time. You know what I'm saying? But how can we be way over time when this is such a beautiful conversation?
Right on time.
It's right on
Absolutely.
time. You know what I'm saying? So this is right on time, and I just think that we really need to focus on this concept that we touched upon, which is not so much the individual success or the individual leader or the individual person, more so our communities. You know what I'm saying? More so us as together as a unit. You know what I'm saying? We can move mountains. We can establish cities, what I'm saying, as we work together, as we build cooperatives and etc. So let us be those worker bees, as Imam Muhammad said. Let us be those worker bees that we don't get hung up in who's in power. When that person is done and they pass the baton on to someone else, they pass the leadership to somebody else. That's how it's supposed to be. We're not worshiping the Imam. We're not worshiping. We don't even worship the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We don't even worship him. We follow his character. We follow his leadership. We follow what he presented, because in his model is the best model for human excellence. You know what I'm saying? It's established for man. So I just think that we're in a blessed time. COVID or no COVID, what COVID has done is slowed us down to do a lot of this work, a lot of this introspection. You know what I'm saying? A lot of these conversations and exchanges happening across the country on different platforms is important. It's a crucial time, and hopefully, as we progress throughout the rest of this year and going to 2021, that we feel the need and see the need for establishment more and more, and that when we come back to the masjid, it's not just a masjid we're coming back to cities, we're coming back to development.
That's what I'm talking about. That's why I love Imam Muhammad. It's man, it just make me want to cry, man. It's because anyway, it's just so beautiful. It's so beautiful. I just can't, those who have children, they'll really understand it. They'll really understand the pride that they look up and, grandpa built this city. Can you imagine that? Grandpa built this, or grandmama financed this skyscraper. Grandmama financed this university. Anyway.
Sister Marsha, you have any closing remarks?
I always do. Thank you, Brother Kachebee, for being with us. This conversation was super insightful. You made, at least me, I don't know about anybody else, but you made me look at music in a different light, and I appreciate you for that. For our listeners and for our viewers, and particularly those who are artists, and even more particularly those who may have music or artistry that is sort of on the line and, you know, borderline and questionable. I challenge you to reconsider what you put out into the universe, what you put out into the community, knowing that form of artistry has influences that go well beyond you, and that we have babies that are listening and watching. Right. And as Brother Kachebee sort of, you know, laid it out for us today, like, you know, music is such an expression of your creativity. So go higher, you know, go higher than where you may be, for the sake of your soul and for the sake of the community getting to where we need to be. Those are my closing remarks.
As the great Salima Ra would say, vibrate higher.
That's right.
Yes.
I love that song too.
That's right.
Excellent. So my closing remark is I got another track we're gonna play on our way out of here. Brother Kachebee, it's called Beautiful. So I'll let Brother Kachebee, if you can introduce it to us, and we'll play it and we'll see you all next time.
Alhamdulillah. You mean how I came up with Beautiful?
Yeah.
Well, the short version, I wrote it for my wife, and for a long time I had problems. I couldn't really come up with the words for it, and we've been married for a long time now. So finally, it came. Stayed up all night recording it, and I said, "Baby, so what do you think?" "Oh, it sucks. I hate it. I don't like it." I was like, "What?" And then I think the next day she's just listening to us smiling. She didn't want to give me that control. But Beautiful is, I wrote that for my wife. I think you'll like it.
Excellent. So until next time. Hip hop and R&B. Kachebee. Check them out on New Freedom Exchange, Blog Talk Radio, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Another edition. We appreciate you all for tuning in. We had Sister Shelly. We had quite a few beloveds here. Brother Bari, Sister Shakura. She says beautiful. Alhamdulillah. Sister Adria. She said she gave us the Muslim Motown review.
Yes.
She said can't forget the beloved Sister Fatima. Who else we got on here?
Well, your boy Wale Ali was tuned in.
Wale Ali, absolutely. So until next time, peace.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
Assalamu alaikum.
Brother Kachebee, this is his single he made in honor of his beloved wife called Beautiful.
Make me feel when I see you braiding your hair. Only you can complete me. No other lady can ever come here. Hold you in my arms this time. Stare into your eyes when I hold you near. Never tire of a love you find. I resolve to comfort you. I'll be a fool to throw this away. Yes, I would, because I need you. Never leave you, don't be afraid. Because you're so beautiful to me. Yeah. Girl, you're so beautiful to me. Yeah. Our love is so beautiful to me. To the quiet times when you whisper sweet songs to me. Only you can excite my heart. Irresistible love for me. Hold you in my arms this time. Turn to your eyes when I hold you near. this. Always been in love with you. Because you're so beautiful to me. Yeah. Girl, you're so beautiful to me. Our love is so beautiful to me. Yeah. You're so beautiful to me.
You know I'll play it safe, put you in first place. Let me tell you how I feel about it. Looking at your beautiful face, no need for you being lonely. When you're all alone, you can call me. True playing the free, how you know me. Thugging it all off with my homies. Matter of fact, baby girl, that's true. Give it up just to be with you. Looking at your beautiful face. Looking at your beautiful face.
I'll be a fool to throw this away.